Hey everyone. I did not plan on posting today, recording today, but I feel so inspired to make this. This has been something on my brain and heart and soul and everything for the longest time. And I'm seeing some people come out echoing like my thoughts and my feelings. So I really feel the need to make this video and add my voice to the sound stream, or whatever the hell you want to call it. So, hi, I'm Bianca Said with Motherhood Empowerment. And when I created my company, I was in a position of just having my daughter and having the most wonderful fucking time with her. You really find out what life really, the value of life really is after you have kids. I don't care what anyone says. It's just the biological imperative. Like, you don't know nothing until you have kids. And I'm not saying that people that don't have kids are dumb or whatever, but I'm saying like it opens a level of consciousness that's not acceptable unless you have children. I stand by that. So when I created my company, it was clear to me that my generation and the previous generation, we're getting screwed here. We're being told that men and women are interchangeable. And so like men can do the mothering and women can do the earning and everything will be fine. And, as a youth, like I've always been a punk rock spirit. I'm always in trouble with authority because I do things my own way. I like to shake things up. I think everything is funny. I like to push the boundaries. Whatever the consensus is, I'm going to go the other way and find perspective there. That's my essence. That's who I am. And so when I was a younger kid, I was pushing the boundaries. I was very much like, yeah, women can do whatever they want, blah, 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 blah. But like I said, you don't know nothing until you actually bear children. So, coming from Idaho, a very conservative, old-fashioned place, being raised LDS, I came from a very conservative background. So obviously my nature was to push towards being more liberal, right? And now I live in DC and everybody is liberal. And so of course I'm conservative. And this isn't like arbitrary meanings. Like this is like has to do with values. You know what I'm saying? Like my rebellious nature is just to like look at things that everybody's doing and think like, how did this like become the norm? And what value can we find that's not what everybody's doing, right? Like I've always been the kind of person that's like, I wonder what else is going on. Is everybody being kind of so close-minded that they're just narrowly viewing like what's acceptable in society and that's all they're focusing on and therefore they're forgetting everything else outside of them? So that's what I mean when I say I seek perspective outside of the consensus. I'm naturally very curious, exploratory, and rebellious. And so all that to say, I don't just flip-flop based on what's like unpopular. I actually try to seek meaning and perspective in things that not everybody's focusing on. Get what I'm saying? Anyways, so when I become a mother, it's very obvious that I have, obviously I have body parts that my husband doesn't have, right? And I have function that my husband never will have. Like there are very specific things that I can do that my husband cannot and never will be able to do. And therefore what emerges there is this biological natural order, natural law based on the male-female dichotomy. And when I say I'm rebellious too, I think it's really important to note that I'm not rebellious against God. I'm rebellious against culture and man-made authority. My only authority is the Quran, no other books, which is God's word. God is my only authority. And we could get into a whole thing there. However, I believe for certain that God created nature, which includes our bodies and our brains and all that stuff. Like, there is one great power that knows all and does all and controls all and is everything. And this is the creator, not male, not female. A creator is beyond all that human crap. Like, I have to respect nature because nature is God's prescription. Nature is what God gave us. We are nature. Like, we have to respect the laws of nature. So having a baby was very apparent, not just during labor, but like, my babies prefer me to anyone, including my husband. We're not interchangeable. And so after becoming a mother and seeing that, like, oh, I'm the only one that can fulfill this stuff. That's why for the majority of history, everything is created around the mother. Like, everything functions to support the mother, or everything should function to support the mother. Like, the reason why men go out and fight and kill and gain resources and all that stuff is because the male cannot fulfill what the female can fulfill. It is simply impossible for him to do so. And while we could, in this economy, in this technological age, us women could go out and make, a certain amount of money or whatever, and it's not necessarily needed to like fight tigers and lions and bears, although sometimes that is needed. But it's confusing these days because we're so technologically advanced that everything has become confusing. Everything has become disconnected from nature and the natural roles that evolve from just being in nature. Your natural roles will become apparent if you're in a natural state and within a natural rhythm, right, with your biology. So all that to say, my eyes were opened big time when I became a mother. So were my husband's. We've been building on this. Everything becomes more simple. Everything is simple. Like, my children need me, and that's what I have to prioritize. That's it. Everything else I get done is a bonus. And so my husband has to fill in for certain things, whatever it is, right? Planning things, doing more of the housework, taking care of bills, obviously bringing in money and stuff, security. He has to do all that stuff because I am busy. I'm busy with the kids. The kids take up, one child is a whole job. It's an overtime thing. It's a commitment. It's like a all-consuming commitment in a good way. And there's challenges too, but like, it's very involved. It's not the same as having a job. It's not the same as clocking in, clocking out, having a salary, all this other stuff. So naturally, it makes sense to like split up the stuff, right? And so the older I get, the longer I'm a parent, the more comfortable with myself I become. And part of that is my biology, my female biology, which has fueled my much more conservative views these days. And that's obviously also based on the Quran and the ancient inherent wisdom therein, these timeless laws and natural order that's reflected in that. I had to learn the hard way of becoming a mom to figure out, I've always believed in God, but I have never respected God and sort of surrendered to God the way that I have now that I'm a mother. So then the third part of that is just like my personality, I told you, like my punk rock essence, my very, I'm highly sensitive. A lot of people say I have this thing called ADD, HD, whatever term they want to call it. I really just think that I'm very attuned to what's going on in the environment, and being highly sensitive makes me a prime candidate for being called ADD. And I've always been this way, and I've always been punished for being how I am. And I've always been taught that like being believing in God and having like conservative values, those don't go with being punk rock. Those don't go with being loving Halloween and like finding perspective in the dark things and nature and human behavior and like spooky things and thinking everything's funny and cussing and being colorful and wearing your hair a certain way. Like I was always taught that when you are somebody who believes in God or you are a conservative person, you have to look a certain way, you have to talk a certain way, you have to behave in a certain way, and it never fit me. And I still, even to this day, like I'm a Muslim because I surrender to God's word of the Quran, and I'm not accepted like as a Muslim. Like people refuse to acknowledge me as a Muslim because I do things the way that I see fit, secondary only to the Quran, not to culture, not to nations and cultures that are like dominated by, or I should say where Islam is the predominant religion, which do they even really practice Islam the way it's supposed to be? Who does, right? Like they don't own the religion. So I have just recently, like within the last not even 5, like I would say 1 to 3 years, accepted myself as the rebellious punk rocker that I am. And I'm silly, I'm adventurous, I cuss a lot, I'm a wild card, and I see a lot of that in my daughter too. And I really never want the future generations, male or female, to think that they're not good enough as a believer in God. They're not good enough to be a part of that group that calls themselves believers, because their style is different, because their brain works different, because they like and enjoy different things. As long as you are following God's word and you're respecting the natural law that God created, you're a believer. Like you can have whatever style, flavor you want, whatever. And I just think it's really important to talk about, because I don't feel like I've ever heard anyone talk about this the way that I'm talking about it right now. And I thought it could be really useful back in the day for me to hear like, hey, you could be who you are the way that you are and still be a believer. And like, you don't have to be accepted by anybody in order to be a believer, in order for God to accept you. Like, it's not the same thing. We can get so caught up in this world that we're made to believe like the church or the mosque or whatever religious community exists that like symbolizes people that believe they're not the only people that believe. They're just the people that like to conform to, and they want like a human leader, right? They want a human leader to follow, to tell them, they want a dad to tell them what to do and all this stuff. I've never been like that. I mean, even when I lived with my dad, God, like I didn't need anyone to tell me what to do. I was super in tune with my intuition. Not that I never need my dad, but like I didn't need an authority. And there's a lot of people like me out there that don't need an authority. You don't need an institution and an imam or a scholar or a priest or a preacher or a bishop or whatever telling you how to live your life. Like you have the book, you see nature, you know the way that nature works, educate yourself on that. And other than that, be loyal to God, not culture. And this is a big thing that I teach in my because I know there's a lot of you out there that are like me. They're like, oh, what the hell? Like, what is this shitty community that I'm left with here? I talk a lot about this in Motherhood Realigned. There is a module called Fuck Culture, Follow God. And hey, even if cussing is not your thing, I know you don't judge me for it. I love expressing myself in any way that I feel, with words especially. So in that module, I talk a lot about how a lot of things that you might be doing and a lot of things you might believe about the way you should behave and dress and blah, 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 might be actually rooted in culture and what humans have told you that you need to do to be acceptable to God, and not actually in the word. I mean, I remember when I converted to Islam, I thought that there were so many rules that I had to follow. Like I used to wear long sleeve shirts and long sleeve shirts and absolutely leggings if something didn't go to my foot, because I thought that in the Quran it said you have to dress that way. It doesn't. It doesn't. Modesty is prescribed in the Quran, and God is not the author of confusion, and religion is not compulsory, and the middle path is the way to go. These are all quotes from the Quran. Nowhere does it say exactly how women have to dress, except for the fact that when they leave the home, they should cover their bosom with something. Baggy shirt, just make sure it's not like super, out there. And for obvious reasons, we know it's to protect us. But like, if it's not there in written line, right? Like if it doesn't say it, and you can even dude, I am also becoming an Arabic student so that I can read the Quran the way it's supposed to be read. And I am completely compliant to God. Nobody else, nothing else. I don't have any other authority. And I talk about this in that module in Motherhood Realigned. I'll put a link down below if you want to check it out. And I have some other blog posts. I'll put a link to my blog that reflects all of these things I'm talking about. So if you feel me, if you've always been different and you have a punk rock essence or a hippie essence or a free spirit or whatever, and you felt like you were never accepted as a believer because of those beliefs, because of your essence, right? If you felt like you were never accepted because of the way that you are, put a comment. I want to know you. I want to know what are the things that differentiate you from other believers, which a lot of them are followers that do they actually believe? So I want to know what differentiates you from them, what made you feel ridiculed and ostracized, and put it in the comments. We need to talk about it. And just so you know, your relationship with God is all that matters. So screw all the other people, screw their opinions. You know you, God knows you. So you don't have to comply with any of the bullshit that these people are prescribing. I want to release you from that and let you know that others are out here doing the same thing. Okay, I'm going to sign off now. Check out the links below. Hit me with a comment. Really, let's start this conversation and start to normalize punk rockers that are believers, free spirits that are believers, hippies that are believers. You don't have to be one or the other. Quit letting people tell you that. Okay? Okay, love you.